Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
What is up, you guys? Tony Metro here. As the off-season continues to move along, we're just 2 days away from Christmas Eve. And so far, we haven't really gotten a whole lot but lumps of coal as New York Mets fans here in the winter. It has just been gut punch after gut punch, watching our prized and most fan-favorite players depart one by one, beginning with the trade of Brandon Nimmo, followed by Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso signing at the winter meetings, and now Jeff McNeil. I can't necessarily say he was a fan favorite, but he is also gone, a guy who was a part of that old guard, the guard that I have said here many times has just completely underachieved over the last several years. Missed the playoffs 5 of the last 7 seasons, going back to 2019, which in my opinion is really what that entire core was of but of Pete Alonso, of Brandon Nimmo, of Edwin Diaz, his first year after being acquired from the Seattle Mariners, and of course Jeff McNeil, who debuted in 2018. And one thing has been made clear by David Stearns and the Mets front office: they are ready to start a new chapter of Mets baseball in Queens. And part of that chapter hopefully means bringing in some quality players, because we haven't really seen a whole lot of that. We've had a lot of take, but not a whole lot of give from the Mets, at least to us as fans. So hopefully that will turn. But 2 guys that we're going to talk about here tonight are guys that have been rumored to be linked to the Mets for a long time. In the case of Luis Robert Jr., it seems like for a calendar year now, going back to last offseason. And then, of course, the Japanese pitcher Tatsuya Imai, who was posted earlier this month and has a deadline to sign with a team on January 2nd. So we're going to run through those guys' numbers, see if they make sense, go over the latest rumors regarding them, and if it in fact will happen. But what is up, guys? Welcome to the stream. Appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm Tony Metro, daily Mets content here on my YouTube channel. You could also follow me on all the other platforms: TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Links to those are all in the description of this video down below. We're not going to do live call-ins tonight. I am, as you can see, in a temporary studio for the next week or so while visiting family, but do want to wish happy holidays to you and your loved ones as well. Be sure to leave this video a like. Go ahead and do that right now. You guys have been awesome about doing that. It is helping to grow the channel exponentially, and we're so close to hitting the goal of 4K subscribers by the end of 2025. I gotta be honest, when I proposed it a few weeks back, I think I was at 3,500 subscribers, and we're up at 38 plus, a little bit after 38 and change, and we're getting close to that 4K goal. So definitely be sure to subscribe if you're not already, and share this with a Mets fan in your life. Share this video with MLB baseball fans in your life. We love to talk it up here and chop it. Let's see. Player for Curvin Roberts' best season, he struck out 181 times. Look, you're jumping the gun here, but let's just get right into it, I guess, player. I am not a big proponent of bringing in Luis Robert Jr. I have never been a huge fan of his. He is a guy that is very talented, has all of the ability to be an all-star. He has shown it in years past, but I am not interested in paying $20 million to acquire a guy, not even also counting the prospect capital that it will require the Mets to get him in a trade with the White Sox for a potential bounce back player. Oh, by the way, in a walk year. That is not something that I am particularly interested in, but where there is smoke, there is fire, and the Mets continue to be linked to Luis Robert Jr. And look, you could do a lot worse. I think that he could absolutely turn it back into his all-star form, no doubt about it, but not something that I am super interested in the Mets taking a chance on when there are just so many questions up and down this roster right now. And it's funny because we went into this offseason thinking, hey, we just got to add some pitching, fix the rotation, make sure we re-sign Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso, and run it back with some better starting pitching. And we probably are going to do a lot better than we did down the stretch in 2025. Well, we have opened a whole new Pandora's box of questions in the outfield. At first base, is Jorge Polanco going to be that guy? So we haven't even addressed the biggest detriment to the Mets' collapse in 2025, and that was their starting rotation, their inability to go 5+. So there are so many questions, there are so many holes that the Mets still need to fill, but honestly, the options are getting slimmer and slimmer by the day. We just saw Ryan O'Hearn sign today with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Nice little deal for him. 2 years, $29 million. He was someone that I mentioned in the offseason recap as well, or offseason previews for free agents that could have been a good little platoon stick at first base. I thought with the idea of bringing Pete Alonso back, because O'Hearn graded out pretty well defensively at first, but it's just another name that is no longer an opportunity for the Mets to explore. So they are getting thinner and thinner, both on the free agent market and trade-wise. As teams start to fill out their rosters, it's only going to become more and more difficult to find partners to dance with in trade negotiations for the Mets to fill out the rest of this team. So, Niners Command, what's up? He said, can someone please explain to me what he brings to help us outside of defense? And like you said, bro, not giving up a lot for him. Look, I said it yesterday when the rumors were kind of heating up again. I'm not really giving up anything more than Luis Angel Acuna. And honestly, I love Luis Angel Acuna. I really do. I think he could have a great role on a playoff worthy team as that super utility defensive player that's a burner on the bases, pinch runner. And I still actually hold out some hope that he could turn into a decent bat. But I'd give up Luis Angel Acuna for Luis Robert Jr. I don't even feel comfortable giving up on Mark Vientos at this point, despite having such a brutal 2025 season. I would still hold out hope that 4 more years of Mark Vientos is going to turn into anything better than what we're going to get out of one season from Luis Robert Jr. And at a $20 million price tag, I'm just not into it. Yes, the defense, absolutely no doubt, is stellar in center field. We know that. But other than that, the stick, the bat at the plate, he is a complete question mark. We have seen him go on these horrific stretches where he is hitting under 200. His on-base percentage is around 240 for weeks at a time. And then he'll go on a torrid stretch for 2 or 3 weeks where he has 6 home runs and he has a 320 average and his on-base percentage is approaching 400. So for me, that's not something you take a $20 million gamble on, especially when it's also going to cost you prospects in the process of that as well. Or in the case of Vientos, a major league ready player. So I'm not sure exactly what it is that the White Sox are looking for in a potential trade. And we know they just, of course, signed Munetaka Murakami yesterday, or rather Sunday. So are the White Sox thinking maybe they could get back into that kind of playoff contending race? I personally still think they're very far away. I think it'd be foolish for them to think otherwise, but I don't know what the situation is on Luis Robert Jr. at this point, other than that the Mets have shown a lot of interest that continued to be reported today, and the Cincinnati Reds have also been talking with Chicago about a potential trade for Luis Robert Jr. So, Gabe, what's up, man? How's it going? Good to see you in here. Gabe, always saying hi and hey and what's up and leaving likes and comments on my videos. I appreciate that from you, Gabe, very much. Let's do this. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. You can see what I'm seeing right now. How about that? A McChicken from McDonald's sounds pretty good right about now. $5, my gosh. McDonald's has really gotten expensive. It is crazy. But since we're on the topic of Luis Robert Jr., how about this? We just take a look at his numbers here right now. So 28 years old, debuted in 2020 when he was 22 out of Cuba. Interesting that the Mets just acquired Yordan Rodriguez from the Athletics in the trade of Jeff McNeil, who is also from Cuba. I'm actually kind of excited about that guy. I know he's only 17 years old, but touches 97 miles per hour. So that is pretty cool. Still going to be many, many years away from ever actually truly seeing him if we get the opportunity. But look, they're not super impressive numbers. Luis Robert Jr. this past season had a 1.4 WAR. I'm thinking most of that probably came from his defense in center field, which, yes, is stellar, no doubt about it. But 14 homers, 53 RBIs. He swiped 33 bases, so that's nice to see. But a 297 on base percentage. I mean, below 300 OPP, his OPS 661, his OPS plus 85. I mean, this guy signed maybe the greatest deal of all time, that he's going to be getting paid $20 million this year for the numbers that he just put up. La Pantera. I mean, that's his nickname, by the way, if you didn't know. But look, there was the great 2023 season where he had the 5.3 wins above replacement, had 38 homers, 80 RBIs. But even in that year, still just just a 315 on base percentage. I mean, not too far off his career marks, 313 career OBP. And a lot of people want to say, well, he's been playing for the lowly White Sox. Last year, they set the worst record in single season for any franchise in baseball history. He doesn't have protection. He's probably not motivated to play and this and that. And look, I'm sorry, but I don't think that it could be that detrimental to his ability to go out and hit. I mean, look, I get it. You do need protection. You do need to have some guys around you in the order, without a doubt. But I don't think enough to the point where you're going to have a 297 on base percentage, where you're going to have a slugging percentage below 400, significantly below 400. And this is now back-to-back seasons where he had an OPS hovering around 660. So I'm not super into the idea. I'd have to know what the trade proposal would be. Like I said, I might start it with Luis Angel Acuna, and that's probably where I'm going to stop. I mean, Mark Vientos, maybe, but I still have hopes for Vientos. I still think of the 2024 run that he had, the playoff bombs he was hitting in October, and I still believe that could be in him there somewhere. But for $20 million on Luis Robert Jr., where he'll be a free agent the year after, coming off the last 2 seasons that he has had, it just ain't for me. It's not for me. But again, I could be convinced depending on what the proposal would be in terms of what the Mets need to send back. They just saved $10 million, obviously, on Jeff McNeil by trading him and only having to eat $5.75 million of his contract. So maybe that is a way to kind of ease the blow of having to take on Luis Robert's deal. Again, you're going to get great defense in center field. Kind of feels more like the Tyrone Taylor role of being that fourth outfielder. But I mean, now you could probably give Carson Benj a little bit more time in AAA if he needs it. Have Taylor in left, have Robert in center. But now we're talking about 2 guys that might be below 300 on base percentage kind of batters in your lineup, in Taylor and in Luis Robert. And that's just simply not good enough. Absolutely not. Let me go to the chat. Player says, steer clear. What do you think about Austin Hays linked to the Mets? Glad to see you, Tony. Glad to see you, player. It's funny because he actually was on the thumbnail for this video, because we did hear today that the Mets have internally at least discussed the idea of Austin Hays, and perfect timing. And we'll come back to Luis Robert Jr., but I already got it here for you guys. Austin Hays, take a look at his numbers here. Let's start with his offensive profile. Really nothing that jumps off the chart at you. 101, I'm sorry, I thought that was games. Let's look at his 2025 season first. Played in 103 games this past year with the Cincinnati Reds. Hit 15 homers and had 64 RBIs, a 266 average, 315 on base percentage. The slugging percentage is actually a lot more impressive than I thought it was going to be at 453, but that is significantly higher than what his career average is for slugging percentage at 435. The year before that with Philly and with Baltimore combined had a 396 slugging percentage, as you can see right here highlighted. So Austin Hays, look, you could do worse. You can, but not in the situation that the Mets are in right now. The Mets cannot afford to be handing a starting job to Austin Hays. If we're talking about a fourth outfielder, then okay, but the Mets already kind of have that with Tyrone Taylor. The only reason Tyrone Taylor started as many games as he did in center field last year was because things just never got going for the rest of the Mets outfielders. And then you had Jesse Winker go down. Not that he was expected to play the field all too much, but then that took away from other opportunities. You had to fit Jeff McNeil in center field because Tyrone Taylor wasn't hitting enough. Then you acquire Cedric Mullins, and even that could somehow be worse than what Tyrone Taylor was giving to the Mets offensively last year, not to mention the injuries that he sustained, especially that one toward the final stretch of the season. But I don't love the idea of Austin Hays. Look, he's projected to get $5 million. Somebody kind of compared him to Rob Refsnyder. He does not hit well against righties, Austin Hays, but he does hit much better against lefties. It's the same kind of thing with splits for Refsnyder, and he just got about $6.75 million from the Seattle Mariners today. So I think they're pretty comparable players. This is just not something that is going to wet my whistle, if I'm just being honest. Sorry to be crude, but this just ain't going to do it for me in the wake of how the rest of this offseason has gone. After hearing that the Mets might be linked to Cody Bellinger and Kyle Tucker, as my light died above me, of course. So hopefully that won't ruin it. It'll probably make it better so you guys don't have to see my mug anymore. But yeah, I'm not really interested in a deal for Austin Hays whatsoever. Let's take a look, though, defensively. What would he do for us? Because if you're talking about a fourth outfielder, yeah, it'd be nice if he hits for you a little bit. Obviously, anything anything you get from there is just gravy. But even defensively, Austin Hayes really doesn't bring a whole lot to the table. This past season, defensive runs saved in 61 games out in left field, -2. So it's not as if he's, doing something tremendous and great in the field with his glove either. So for me, it's a pass. Look, if the Mets are going to announce that they just signed Kyle Tucker or Cody Bellinger and they're going to trade for Ketel Marte or one or the other, then okay, bring in Austin Hayes to be the fourth outfielder guy off the bench. Sure. But just on its own, it's not something that I'm super interested in. But we did hear that the Mets have at least internally discussed the idea of bringing Austin Hayes in, who is a free agent. He's 30 years old, has spent time with Baltimore, has spent time with the Phillies, and most recently this past season with the Cincinnati Reds. So not for me, but we will see. I mean, David Stearns has been signing a lot of scrap heap guys lately, so I would not be surprised to see it scroll across the timeline tomorrow on Twitter. Let's see, Gabe. I don't like Luis Robert. Only we could get him on a really good deal for not much in return. Yeah, like I said, I am very, very hesitant to trade for Luis Robert Jr. I would think that just taking on that contract alone should be helpful to the White Sox. I don't know their spending plans or habits at this point, being that they're coming off the worst season in baseball history in 2024. I know they were much better this past year, but I still think they're many years away from being true playoff contenders. So I don't really envision them spending a whole lot, but giving them a little bit of salary relief might help in that case, or maybe they could bring in some other stuff this offseason. But I would think they're trying to cash in and get some quality prospects or MLB ready players. And the furthest I will go for Luis Robert Jr., when you take into account that figure that he has for this upcoming season of $20 million, is probably Luis Angel Acuna. Caden, what's up, man? He says, who do you think we would have a better chance of signing? Okamoto or Ketel Marte? And who would you rather? Well, Ketel Marte is obviously on the Arizona Diamondbacks, so the Mets would have to trade for him. Okamoto is a free agent, and he fits this team like a glove, and I'm really disappointed that the Mets have not been more aggressive in getting a deal done with him. That's not to say that they're not in on Kazuma Okamoto, but they absolutely should be, and we haven't heard anything about it. In fact, John Heyman had a tweet yesterday where he listed 6 teams in on Kazuma Okamoto, and the Mets were not one of them. I'll actually just go to it because I quote tweeted it, and it was very disappointing. But this was basically the tweet here from John Heyman. Mentioned these 6 teams in on Kazuma Okamoto: the Angels, the Pirates, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Cubs, and Diamondbacks. Most of these teams want Bichette and Bregman. I think it comes down to the Pirates and Angels if I had to guess. So that's not the last part, is from someone that quote tweeted it about John Heyman, but this was my response to that. The Mets have said they want a right-handed bat. They also would like a guy that might play first base. That's Kazuma Okamoto in a T. And yet the Mets, for whatever reason, are not one of the teams in on him, at least according to John Heyman. And we have heard many times that the Mets do not leak. This new front office is really good about keeping all of their cards close to the vest and not giving out any information. But I still would like to see the Mets maybe be a little aggressive and just get it done, because we've signed Jorge Polanco at this point, and he's going to be the first baseman, a position that he's never played, and it just doesn't make sense. Whereas Okamoto seems like the guy, I've said it before, between him and Munetaka Murakami, who just got lowballed, 2 years, $36 million, I think it came out to. So what, $18 million per season with the White Sox? His market fell off a cliff. I don't think that's the case with Okamoto, but that's closer to what he was predicted to get when Murakami, the younger and potential more impressive Japanese player coming over from the Nippon League, was expected to get over 120 to 170 million. So I think Okamoto could be had for a 4-year deal, $60 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. So essentially double what Murakami just got, who at 26 I'm sorry, 25 right now, but will be 28 by the end of that contract, gets an opportunity to retest the market if he fares well in the big league. So Okamoto is clearly the easier avenue for the Mets to pursue than a trade with Ketel Marte, who is 32 years old, has an extremely team-friendly contract. We did hear today that the Diamondbacks have said that they will only trade Ketel Marte if they can get pitching prospects back. And well, let's be honest, the Mets are as well equipped equipped to complete a trade like that than anybody else in the big leagues. I'm not saying the best, but a glut of pitching prospects, and a lot of them that are MLB ready right now. And then you think about the next tier of guys, the Jonathan Santucci's of the world, the Jack Wenigers of the world. There's a lot of guys that we don't even talk about because we're so fixated on Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, and on Brandon Sprope that we don't even realize that there's a whole nother group right behind them that are also very close to taking the mound in the big leagues. So I would say that Okamoto is the clear-cut, easiest avenue for the Mets to pursue one of those two guys between him and Marte, but man, Marte would get me juiced. The problem is, where do you play him? Like, we just acquired Marcus Semien. He's under contract for the next 3 years, and he's a Gold Glover at second base. So does Ketel Marte try to learn first? Do you put him in left field? Does he just DH? I don't know. I would do anything I could to get that type of bat in my lineup, but it goes pretty much against everything that David Stearns has said this offseason about run prevention. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but once you get me talking Mets, it's hard to stop. So let's go back over to the chat over here. Bobby Baseball, what's up? He says, steer clear. What do you think about Austin? Oh, I'm sorry. I already got to that one. My bad. Who else have I missed up here? I'm sorry, guys. I'm in a new studio for the week, and all my computer stuff is in different spots from what I'm used to. Epic Ball 80, unless he's dirt cheap, which he won't be. It's a no on Luis Robert. He'll be Senga in the outfield. When he's on, he'll be amazing, but he'll either get hurt or regress before we know it. That's hilarious. The Cuban Kodai Senga, aka Luis Robert Jr. Yeah, I mean, I could see that being the case. I mean, he is fragile. He goes out there and he does play, but he's boomer bust. Luis Robert Jr. is either lighting the world on fire, and you see those glimpses of him being that superstar player that they expected him to be when they gave him that big deal, and then you see what else he does, and it's like, okay, very mediocre. 2022, he only played in 98 games, but 2.2 WAR. So extrapolate that over 162, it'd probably be closer to what he did the first 2 years or so of his career. But after that 2023 All-Star campaign, where he finished 12th in MVP voting, he has just fallen precipitously off with Chicago. Age 26 season in 2024, played just 100 games, had a 1.4 wins above replacement, and then almost identical this season, played in 110 games, same thing, 1.4 WAR. The average, the slash line is almost exactly the same as the previous year. I mean, to a T, even the OPS is almost exactly the same. So yeah, I am not going to spend big on Luis Robert Jr., especially when you have to factor in the prospect capital that the Mets would have to send back there. Let's see. Who else do we got here? My guy's Met62. I'd rather trade for Ketel Marte and play him in left field. That is an option, like I mentioned. I think that David Stearns is going to probably be weary of that, considering, like I said, him having said at the beginning of the offseason that run prevention was a big focus this winter. It'd be pretty, talking two sides out of your mouth and hypocritical of him to then go acquire Ketel Marte and put him in left field. So, I mean, as a DH, sure, you find a way to get a bat like Ketel Marte's into your lineup no matter what, but it would definitely be straying from what he made known in the beginning of the offseason as the team's plans to improve for the future. But yeah, I would love to get him without a doubt. Gabe Sam, would you rather move Vientos or Beatty, and why? Wow, that is a tough one, man, because if you asked me this even in the middle of the season, I still would have said Beatty. Wow. If I had to answer, I would say Mark Vientos, which is crazy because I have not been a big fan of Brett Beatty. He has had every opportunity over the last 3+ years to seize the third base job and has pretty much just fallen on his face every chance. Mark Vientos had that epic 2024 season, all those big postseason home runs. And, we saw even in the beginning of this year with Beatty, the same old thing, a good week followed by 2 really terrible weeks, sent down to AAA. Tear it up in AAA, get called back up and start hitting and then stop hitting. But then he finally really did put it together here when you look at his complete season here. I think he had 16, maybe 17 home runs, maybe 18 even for Beatty, and plays much better defense than Mark Vientos, who at this point is borderline unplayable at third base. So Vientos is profiling more as a designated hitter. Brett Beatty, if he actually is finally breaking out with his bat at the plate, could be a very, very good third baseman. I'll even say top 10 in baseball if he continues to hit the way that he did in the final 2.5 or 3 months of 2025 while giving you quality defense at third. So I can't believe I'm saying it, because this time last year, my goodness, would my answer have been so different. But I would trade Mark Vientos, I think, before I would Brett Beatty at this point in time. But as we've seen with these two guys over the last 3 years, it could flip on a dime like that. So who knows, man? We might be saying something very different again a year from right now. Epic Fall, to be honest, I really think about bringing Bader back. He was always solid for the Mets and was crushing it in Philly, and no on Hayes. He's giving we have Robert Jr. at home vibes. Yeah, we definitely should not be interested in Hayes. I was disappointed to even see that report today from the guys on Twitter. I guess it was Anthony Tacomo, I think, or one of those. Maybe it was Will Salmon, actually, that had broke it. Friend of the show, great guy. But yeah, I'm not interested in Hayes. As far as Harrison Bader, look, I think he priced himself out, unfortunately, and maybe his market will come back to earth, but he played so well last year, and specifically in the second half after getting traded from Minnesota to the Phillies, that he's looking for a multi-year deal where he's going to get maybe $60-70 million, like a 4-year deal. And he's not going to get that, at least not from me. I like Harrison Bader a lot. I would love to have him back. If that market does come back down and we're talking something like 3 years and 40 million or even 45, I'd give him 15 million annually to essentially take over for what Tyrone Taylor's role is as a Gold Glove level center fielder. That, hey, what you get back from him with his stick, it's just a bonus, right? But you already have it with Taylor. I think he's under control for at least 1 more year. This might be his final year, so maybe it would make sense to give Bader a 3-year deal somewhere in that neighborhood. But again, I think Bader is seeking to cash in on a really successful, really impressive 2025 season, and I think it's just going to be way too rich for David Stearns' taste, especially, like I said, with the plethora of other things on his to-do list right now. So I would love it, but I don't see Harrison Bader and the Mets having a reunion in the cards, unfortunately. My guys, Mets. I'm sorry, I already got to that one. Let's see. Brad, for now, let's see. They have around $42 million to get to 330 starting day, and we have too many holes to fill. Yeah, I mean, and that's why when people said yesterday, hey, well, how could you say the Jeff McNeil trade was a good trade? We got a 17-year-old pitcher that just debuted in rookie baseball in the Dominican Summer League. Well, you just saved $10 million. And so, yeah, you could tell me Jeff McNeil can play multiple positions, and he can play most of them pretty average or above average, and he's got a 730 OPS. Okay, well, he clearly was a malcontent here, or at least there was some type of locker room issue between him, Lindor. I don't know who it was, but like I said in a tweet earlier today, when McNeil starts having 30 home run seasons and playing Gold Glove defense at a premier position on the diamond, then we could talk about who was the right or wrong person to trade between him and Lindor. Until then, the truth is Lindor has made himself indispensable because of his play on the field. So not to go off on a tangent, but I was A-okay with moving McNeil, even though they only got Yordan Rodriguez, the 17-year-old, because we saved $10 million on his contract for this year. And it opens up opportunities to fill some of those holes that they have. There's no doubt about it. I'm thinking it's less and less likely that the Mets are going to actually acquire a frontline starting pitcher. It doesn't seem like anything is happening on the trade front. We have heard about Freddie Peralta. We have heard Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan has all but been taken off the market as far as I can tell. I think the Brewers are waiting to be absolutely blown away for Freddie Peralta. Otherwise, they will, in fact, hold on to him. And then, of course, Tariq Skubal, who is a pipe dream. And like I said yesterday in the stream about for the breaking news on McNeil being traded, I'm not really interested in trading for a guy that only has 1 year and is destined to test free agency. So I think that the Mets are in all likelihood not going to acquire a frontline starting pitcher. Maybe at the deadline that could change, but I think they're going to roll into the year with what they have right now, barring any significant trade coming up where they feel comfortable letting go of some of these young pitchers that are in the pipeline right now. Let's see. Brad, for now, I could see Okamoto or Eugenio Suarez. Yeah, the only way they are going to sign Eugenio Suarez is if he is going to be the permanent DH. And I just don't think the Mets roster at the moment is built to afford someone a full-time designated hitter role in the case of Eugenio Suarez, because he is not a good third baseman. I know he has played some first base in the past, as I try to adjust my camera here, so bear with me, but I don't think that Eugenio Suarez is a fit for this team. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the bat. I wanted the Mets to trade for him from Arizona at the deadline to try and improve third base a little bit and let him mix in a DH more often than not. But now with the signing of Jorge Polanco, who will probably assume some designated hitter at bats, having Mark Vientos still on the roster, at least for the moment now, I just don't see how the Mets could fit Eugenio Suarez on this team. He is not a good defensive third baseman that is clearly going to belong to Brett Beatty at this point. So as much as I love the stick that Suarez would bring, it just doesn't seem like a fit without the Mets moving some other parts. And unfortunately, one of those parts is just unmovable, that being Jorge Polanco, who of course they just signed about a week and a half ago or so. So I don't see Suarez happening, as nice as it would be to get that jolt and thump into this lineup. Coco, what's up? He says, I would rather just fill out the lineup with all young guys. I don't want a half-ass rebuild. Look, and that's the truth, guys. I mean, we all want to make these videos and, you know, talk about who they might sign, but David Stearns has made it very clear that young guys deserve to play. He said this at the end of the season, you know, his first press conference, and then he said it again at the GM and at the winter meetings, that there are young guys, and I remember the word he used was that are deserving to play, that are deserving of time in the big leagues. So he's talking about Jet Williams, he's talking about Carson Bench, he's talking about AJ Ewing, and though he didn't name them, he's talking about the three pitchers that we saw debut last year, McLean, Tong, and Sproat, and there's more knocking on the door behind all of those guys as well. So I think that's the way it's going to go. We are going to see a youth movement here, and we're going to try to sprinkle in a couple nice veterans around there, but I wouldn't be surprised, guys, if honestly they don't really do a whole lot more. I think Okamoto fits perfectly because of his timeline, gives you a chance to still win without, you know, getting locked down to a, you know, long-term deal like Cody Bellinger and Kyle Tucker want. So I think Okamoto would be a great guy to at least still give you a chance to win in 2026 and for the next 2 years after that, while he's still on the contract that I'm imagining he would sign for 3 to 4 years, and still have an opportunity to let your young guys come up and get their at bats and play in the positions that you are pretending them to be playing in the future and moving forward. Let's see. Katie says, what do you think the Mets are in for the next to trade? What do you think the Mets are in for next, for trade or signing? Okay. Sorry, I couldn't understand that at first. I think it's going to be Luis Robert. I really do. We keep hearing about Luis Robert Jr. and we keep getting connected to the White Sox for this deal, and I could see that being the case. And so actually I kind of got sidetracked here as I was looking at your guys' stuff on the chat, but let's take a look at Luis Robert Jr.'s StatCast from this past year, and it wasn't the prettiest. He's got great bat speed, 92nd percentile, but other than that, not a whole lot of red on this page. Fielding run value of 7, that's in the 87th percentile, so obviously, you know, love that. And outs above average was 7, so 93rd percentile, and he's a speedster. We know that. He stole 33 bases, but overall, you know, I'm not super impressed with him when you consider the price tag connected to him, but I think that's going to be the next move. I think Luis Robert Jr. is probably going to be the next big Mets news we see coming across our screens here. I think they're going to find a way to make a deal for him. He fits in for this year and probably this year only, and so that's why I'm hesitant to give up much for him. But I could see this being the case because you keep hearing the Mets connected to him, and essentially it just comes down to, hey, are they going to be the highest bidder in terms of a trade between them? And we know that the Cincinnati Reds have also been rumored to be talking with the White Sox as well. So I think it's down between those two teams, the Mets and the Reds, for Luis Robert Jr., unless there is a surprise team that we're just not hearing about. But yeah, I think this is probably going to be the next move. And from there, I really don't know where the Mets are going to go in the what direction. Is it going to be to try to acquire a pitcher? Is it going to be to try and find another stick in the lineup? Because Luis Robert Jr. is not bringing a very big stick, at least not based on what he's done over the last 2 years. But if I had to predict, that's what I would go with. Let's see. Excuse me, guys. Epic Fall. What about Imai? I'm of two minds. He could be another Yamamoto Sasaki or Imanaga and Senga. All right. So that's very interesting because that's how a lot of scouts feel about Tatsuya Imai. They don't know exactly what he's going to be. And so we can actually take a look at this article here together that I was taking a look at earlier. And so this was about the Cubs who were linked to Tatsuya Imai. And so reports have come out that he's probably more likely to sign with a team on one of the coasts rather than in the Midwest. And so this was kind of a bummer for the Cubs. This is a Cubs blog here that we're looking at. And so they were disappointed in that, but it doesn't mean he may not. You know, Shota Imanaga did sign with the Cubs, of course. He is not going to be reaching anywhere close to the 190 million mark. And the longer this goes on, closer to his date, his deadline for January 2nd, the less likely he's going to get a big deal. But scouts are just very puzzled on what he's going to be. Is he going to be a number 2? Is he going to be a number 4? Is he going to be somewhere in between there? They don't really truly know. So everything I've seen on him, all the video I've seen, all of the stats I've researched, it sounds like he's going to translate well. But the end of the day, is he going to be a number 2 that stays healthy or a number 3 that stays healthy? Something that Senga has struggled so mightily to do with the Mets. Or is he going to be a guy like Senga? Is he going to be a guy that is fragile, that needs the 6-man rotation? And so that's why making this into a huge long-term deal that's very expensive is just a risky proposition. But for me personally, him being 27 years old, I'm willing to go 5 or 6 years on Tatsuya Imai. And I don't know if he's going to be an ace. I don't think anyone truly knows that he's going to be an ace, but I would roll the dice on a 5 or 6 year deal for $120 million. And that's probably not what he was envisioning when he was coming over, but it's pretty close to what Kodai Senga got coming over as a 30-year-old. Senga came over at 30. He got a 4-year, $75 million deal. For a 27-year-old, I'd be willing to roll the dice on a 5 or 6 year contract, just around $110 to $125 million. So we don't know what he's going to be, but a lot of people have had high praise for him. I just think it's going to be something that's a little too rich for David Stearns' blood, just based on what we have seen from him in the past. That's just me. Let's see. What do I think of O'Hearn? Bobby Baseball says, I like O'Hearn. I thought he would have been a great piece to bring in had the Mets re-signed Pete Alonso, where you had O'Hearn playing first base the majority of the time. He crushes righties. He doesn't do so well against lefties. So that would have been a great DH platoon situation if you were going to keep Mark Vientos around, who does the opposite against lefties and righties. But 2 years, $29 million. Yeah, a little more than I probably would have done for a guy that is essentially going to be in a platoon role. So I don't think it would have been a fit for the Mets. I liked the profile of the guy, but again, that was more so based on the idea that Pete Alonso was still here and we still had that thump in this Mets lineup. So once Pete left, the idea of bringing in Ryan O'Hearn just didn't sound as sexy to me anymore. So I'm not going to lose any sleep on him signing with the Pirates. Look at the Pirates spending a little bit, trying to get back in the game. Bob Nutting actually cashing in his Social Security checks here and sprinkling a little bit on that roster around Paul Skeens finally. So that's pretty cool to see. Hopefully they don't stand in our way. But yeah, I am not, again, going to lose any sleep over Ryan O'Hearn going to the Pirates. My guys, Mets. I hope the Mets are negotiating with Tatsuya Imai. He's going to be a very good major league starter. Interesting. Okay, so I mean, like I said, there are just differing opinions all over the place on Tatsuya Imai, from scouts to fans, and I mean, it's just really hard to peg him and see where he's going to fit in. And that's why when he was predicted to get a deal somewhere around 6 to 7 years for $170 million, it just made it really difficult to commit that kind of money to a guy that has many question marks around him. And it's very similar to the situation with Munetaka Murakami, whose deadline came to just a day or two before he signed with the White Sox finally this past Sunday and got a significantly less deal than what experts were predicting him to get entering free agency this winter. So we will see with Imai, but I would really like him. Timothy Frith, same thing. Should the Mets sign Imai? I would love it. I think it's a good idea. Here's the thing though, guys. The Mets signed Tatsuya Imai, and you essentially need to have another plan here because you got a loaded rotation already, and not in the sense that it's so good loaded, but you already have a full rotation at the moment. You got Nolan McLean, obviously, who's your number one at this point. You got Clay Holmes, who I'm putting at the 2 because he's probably the most dependable, healthy guy of the rest of the group of David Peterson, Kodai Senga, and Sean Manaya. And now without accounting for Brandon Sproat and for Jonah Tong, who, if you sign a guy like Tatsuya Imai, then you can essentially expect those two to go down to AAA, at least for the start of the year. And of course, we know there will be injuries, and he will be called upon. One of those guys, if not both of them, will be called upon in the very near future from that point. But as far as Imai, yes, I think it would be really awesome to bring him in, but it's just going to depend on what the price tag is. Like I said, I'd be comfortable going 6 years, $120 million on him. He's 27 years old. I love the fiery attitude. We've heard him throw some shade at the Dodgers recently. He doubled down on it, saying they don't need me and I want to beat them and I want to play with them. I love that. At the end of the day, it's all talk. Doesn't matter if you don't perform on the field, but I love the mindset that he has as well, but not enough to commit a ridiculous contract just because he talks tough. So I think a lot of general managers in baseball are kind of wondering the same thing. What exactly is he going to be? But I would sign off on that kind of a deal like I just suggested. Armand, what's up, man? How's it going? Good to see you in here, dude. Meanwhile, in Syracuse, sign Bichette and trade for Duran and Miller. Oh, man. So I love the idea of trading for Duran, and those rumors have kind of just cooled off, but we know the Red Sox have a surplus in the outfield. They have been rumored to be shopping both Jarren Duran and Wilyer Abreu. I would love either of those guys. I don't know what it would take, but I have seen proposals from Red Sox beat writers and from blogs starting out with Jonah Tong, and I just have to immediately exit the article because that's ridiculous. That is not happening. Now, look, Jarren Duran, yes, 8th in MVP voting in 2024, was unconscious, but definitely had a down season in 2025. I would love to have him in left field without a doubt. You could even start him in this season in center until Carson Bench is ready, and then maybe even so, Duran might still play and grade out as a better defensive center fielder than Carson Bench ever will. But if you're starting out with Jonah Tong, then just hang up the phone. That ain't happening. No shot. Now, if you want to start talking about someone like Brandon Sproat, okay, I'm willing to start having a conversation. They're probably going to also ask for Mark Vientos, and they're probably going to ask for another prospect within the top 15 of the Mets system. And so it's for Duran. He's got, I believe, 2 years left, so 2026 and 2027, and then as a free agent, I could be wrong, he might have 2028 under team control as well. But we're getting a little bit closer as long as you're not starting it with with Jonah Tong in that potential trade. As far as Bichette, I don't think that's happening. Look, he is seeking a $300 million contract. He just came off a huge playoff run with Toronto, a World Series to remember for himself personally. He's been said to be willing to play second base or potentially even third. I've not heard third base verbatim, but we have heard him being willing to move to second. That could fit the Mets if they want to put him at third, and then maybe you put Brett Beatty at first. You see, there's just so many pieces of the puzzle that you need to move around to make it work. So as much as you'd love to have that bat in Bo Bichette, I think he's going to be very expensive, and it's going to require you to make a lot of other changes to the look of your roster. So I don't see Bichette being a realistic opportunity for the Mets. But Armand, there's no room for Bo on the roster. Simeon second. Bo's defense is bad at short, so that means his defense will be bad at third. There you go. Armand, all right on top of things. Let's see. Niner Command. I lost you. 1 sec. Niners Command. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're replying. Stoney, what's up, man? He said, hi, Tony. Glad you're back at it again. Even though you were cut short yesterday. Yeah, like I said, guys, I'm in this temporary studio for the week while I'm visiting family. So yesterday's stream got cut short, but I think we said basically everything we needed to say in that stream about Jeff McNeil being traded. Guys, go ahead and leave this video a like right now if you have not already done so. Really appreciate it. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Daily Mets content. Keep you up to date on all their moves this offseason, the entire winter. Really appreciate you guys, and share this video with a Mets fan in your life. Share it with another baseball fan. We talk shop here. It's not just always Mets. So close to that 4K goal. By the end of 2025, we got about 8 days left. We're a little less than 200 away, so share this with your friends and family. Really appreciate it. Would be an awesome Christmas gift. So thank you all for tuning in and being loyal viewers, and I enjoy doing this with you guys so much. Stoney, thank you very much for tuning in. Joe, sign Imai, Okamoto, and trade for outfield help. I mean, that's the easiest fix, right? Go sign Okamoto, who fits this team like a glove, like I said. Plays both corner infield positions, has won a gold glove at both of them in Japan. And by the way, is profiling as a 20 to 25 home run bat in the big leagues and doesn't have those same contact concerns that Murakami has for why his market tanked. He's a guy that can put the ball in play, a guy that can walk, that has a very impressive strikeout to walk ratio in Japan, that can handle velocity, something that Murakami did struggle with in Japan. So for me, Okamoto is just such an easy fit for this Mets team. And if you sign Imai, well, great. Now you got a guy that maybe he's not going to be an ace, but could be a dependable number 2. That would be nice behind Nolan McLean. Hopefully you get a bounce back out of Senga and Manaya and see what's left with Peterson and Holmes. That's not bad. But then you go and find some outfield help. Maybe it's Luis Robert Jr. I'd be feeling a lot better about this offseason if they were able to do those 3 things, Joe. D-Rails, my brother, what's going on, D-Rails? What is up? Good to see you, man. I'm glad you could tune in here. D-Rails is one of the OGs. Stoney's an OG. Joe is. Armand, all the guys in here. Jimmy James C is an OG. We got all the boys in here right now. Guys, I really appreciate y'all being in here and sticking with me all throughout the offseason as well. Good to see you, D-Rails. Mets586, did you used to make Mets vids on YouTube when you were a kid? Yeah, actually, I did. You caught me. I did. I was then known as Go57 Mets, so you caught me there. Yes, that was me. Yours truly back in 2008, 2009, around that era when the Mets and the Phillies were duking it out for the National League East, and we had a fun little thing going back then, and my only regret is that I didn't keep doing it when I was that young, because YouTube at that time was not what it is now. But had I continued doing it, man, I might be living on a private island had I continued doing those YouTube videos from back when I was a kid in 2009, 2010. So yeah, that was me, Mets586. Good to see you, man. I hope you got a good laugh out of that. Tony, would you want Ketel Marte? I mean, of course I would want Ketel Marte. The question is, what was it going to cost? What's it going to cost, and where are the Mets going to play him, right? I mean, he's got 7 years at, I think, $101 million left. It comes out to about $19 million average annual value on his contract. The Mets have Marcus Semien here for the next 3 years, who just won a gold glove at second base. Do you put Marte in left field? Do you put him at the DH spot? I don't know. You find a way to make that bat fit, but what does Arizona want? We heard today that they're seeking pitching prospects in return. And like I said earlier, the Mets are as well equipped as any team in baseball to make that happen. But is it going to be Sprout and Weniger and fill in the gaps? I don't know. But look, if I could see the deal on paper in front of me, I'd tell you yes or no right now. But it doesn't still answer the question, where are the Mets even going to play Marte? Do I want the bat? Absolutely. Do I know how to fit him onto this roster? Not very much, to be honest with you. Let's see. Armand, Jack Curry on Yanks Hot Stove said he got the vibe. The Yanks won't sign Imai, and they have not met him yet. So that was something I saw before this as well. Tatsuya Imai was someone that Yankee fans connected to themselves, as they so often do, because they're obnoxious trolls, as we all know. But Jack Curry, who is probably the best Yankees reporter in town, said that he was not getting the impression that the Yankees and that the and Tatsuya Imai's camp have connected whatsoever. And I don't know if he actually put it out in a tweet. It doesn't appear like he did, but there was a lot of rumblings from Yankee fan accounts on Twitter just before I went live on Jack Curry's reporting, saying that he doesn't get any type of connection between them. He says the vibe that Jack Curry is getting with the Yankees and Tatsuya Imai is that the connection, quote, does not exist. He believes Imai will not sign with them. Yeah, so a lot of Yankee fans were hopeful that they would get into the international market and try to sign Tatsuya Imai, but it does not sound like it, according to who I believe is the most in tune to the Yankees offseason, that being Jack Curry. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case. Jimmy James C, after an epic collapse, signing basically nobody and losing 2 of our best players in free agency isn't going to get butts in the seats. Bargain bin shopping isn't going to cut it. Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you, Jimmy. And at the end of the day, look, we were all bitching and crying about how the Mets performed those final 3 months of the year. And we were saying things need to change. We need things to change. This is all wrong. And now we're getting that change and we're saying, what are you doing? Why are you changing everything? So like, I look at it from both sides of the coin. In one sense, like, hey, I was ready for some change. And another, I was thinking, maybe just kind of add around the margins of this core, keep Pete Alonso, keep Edwin Diaz. I was open to a trade for Nimmo in the right trade. I didn't exactly love it being Marcus Semien at his advanced age and his expensive contract to be your second baseman. So it's been, a very kind of just confusing, very puzzling offseason so far. But yeah, I mean, unless things change we still got some time, but unless things change pretty quickly here, I do not think that they will be eclipsing a new record attendance for a single season at Citi Field like they just did in 2025 when they sold 3 million tickets. That was a record for Citi Field here in its 13th year now, 16th year of existence. So yeah, unless they make some major additions and changes to this roster before March, they're definitely not going to be reaching those numbers, Jimmy. You're 100% on the mark. Let's see, Bobby Baseball, not going to lie, Stern's biggest move is going to be Rowdy Tellez. Oh my God, I'm going to just have to jump off a cliff if that's the case, please. Biggest, literally, Rowdy Tellez, the biggest move. Yeah, actually, that would make a lot of sense. You might as well bring in Daniel Vogelbach too, right? Let me fix this here. All right, here we go. All right, we got a droopy camera here. Armand says Imai's deadline is January 2nd at 5 p.m. Right, so he's got about 10 days, right? 10 days or so to pick a team. So we'll see who he goes with. Look, there haven't been a whole lot of teams connected to him, and I don't know if that's because his camp just hasn't been leaking anything or what the deal is, but we really have not heard any type of news on him. But that was the same on Okamoto, or I'm sorry, on Munetaka Murakami, and then all of a sudden he just signed with the White Sox on a Sunday morning. So I don't know. I mean, I know they are not represented by the same agents, so it's not as if I'm trying to say that they are sharing a camp that does a really good job of keeping things, low key. But yeah, on these two international free agents coming over from Japan so far, there just really have not been a whole lot of rumblings from the beat reporters here in the U.S. as far as who's connected to them and, what their latest status is. So they got this deadline and they got to sign before it. But I think the longer it goes on, the worse it goes. As far as Yamamoto a couple years ago, we were getting updates on a daily basis about who's in, who's out, who's far off of the figure he's looking for, and who's in the lead. The Mets were in, the Yankees were in, the Dodgers were in, the Mets were out, the Yankees were out, and of course it ended up being the Dodgers. But that has just not been the case whatsoever with either Munetaka Murakami or with Tatsuya Imai, who I would wager are the two most prized of the guys coming over from Japan. But I still to this day say that it's Kazuma Okamoto that I think has the highest floor of all of those players. Maybe not the highest ceiling, but definitely the highest floor. The guy that you probably are going to have the lowest risk on being a contributing player on your roster in the big leagues. Let's see, Armand really has them on a budget. Stearns. Tony, if the Mets don't do good this year, do you see Mendoza being fired? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If the Mets get off to a poor start and they are not having a good season, let's call it by the end of May, there's going to be rumors already swirling before that. But if the Mets are, say, like 2-3 games over 500 in May, there's going to be rumors, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him fired in June. 100%. Yeah. And I said this last year when everyone was saying fire Mendoza during that horrific 3-month stretch to round out the year. I was saying, look, we can't do that. It just got us to game 6 of the NLCS last year, despite the really bad start in 2024. You got to at least give him the rest of this year. Let him start 2026. But if you watch my streams during the season, I always said, if they get off to a slow start in 26, I'll be right there with you and saying fire Mendoza. And I believe that to be the case. The only problem with that is that if Mendoza is getting fired and it's coming from David Stearns, well, who's the next person to fire if things continue to go off the rails? It's David Stearns' ass on the line. So if he gets rid of Mendoza, he is putting himself in the front of fire. So if it comes from Steve Cohen, Different story, maybe, though. That's a kind of warning shot to David Stearns to kind of get his act together and get things going in the right direction. But that's the only thing I think could potentially hold up Mendoza getting fired, even if they start poorly for the first 2+ months of the season, is that David Stearns is then putting himself in the line of fire to be the next guy on the chopping block. But I definitely could see it, Stoney, no doubt. And then, Kern, how do you feel about the Mets? Man, I feel like they give me a headache every single day. I mean, it's just insane what this offseason has brought us, but it's been fun at the same time getting to cover it here and talk about it with all of you guys on all the different platforms we're on here, and TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You guys can follow me, by the way. Link to all those are in the description of the video down below. But yeah, I think the offseason is incomplete. At the moment right now, I'm very concerned. I am. But I also recognize that David Stearns is trying to build a winning, sustainable team, and that starts with the farm system. Well, guess what? After last year, the Mets got ranked as the #1 farm system in baseball. We even got a little taste of it there at the end of the year with Nolan McLean and with Tong and with Sprout, all with varying results, obviously. But we're going to start seeing it now with position players, with Jet Williams and with Carson Bench, and maybe with AJ Ewing this upcoming season. And there's more in the pipeline behind that as well. So in that regard, I'm excited about a new future for this team. We have Juan Soto in tow for the next 14 years after a really great 2025 season, his first in Queens. Lindor is still on contract. I still think has a couple good seasons left, at least 3 more really high quality, potentially knocking on the door of an MVP conversation type of seasons left before who knows what happens after that. But he is more than certainly delivered on his extension from 2021. So I think that this 2026 team still needs a lot, but overall the trajectory and direction I think that the team is heading, the franchise as a whole, I'm positive about it. But I definitely would like to see the Mets win a World Series sooner than later. So be nice if they could start doing some stuff for this year, 2026. That would be a little encouraging for sure. So now, maybe not a great answer, but I would just say that Rome wasn't built in a day. It's cliche, but the truth is that I think the Mets are in good hands with David Stearns as far as player and roster development. He had to clear out some of the weeds before he could plant some flowers. I just came up with that off the top of the dome. What do you think about that? Has anyone ever said that ever in the history of the universe? You guys can take that one to the bank. I'm just kidding. All right. Bobby Baseball. Hot take. Bellinger will sign the day after Tucker. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, domino effect. Like you said, Bobby, 100%. Tucker's going to set the market. The problem is people don't want to commit the years and money that Tucker wants. Tucker wanted a 10-year, $400 million deal, and everybody to this point has said, absolutely not. Are you out of your mind? Tucker's a great baseball player. Tucker's been one of the top 15 hitters in baseball over the last 4 to 5 years, but he's 28 years old. He misses time every season with injury. I'd be more than happy to give Kyle Tucker a 7-year contract for $250 million. Wouldn't even bat an eye, but he's going to hold out until he gets better than that. And it's going to affect Cody Bellinger's timeline and when he does ultimately sign. But Bellinger similarly is looking for a 7-year something deal, 6 years at least. They're probably starting their negotiations, him and Scott Boras, at 7, knowing they'll probably have to settle at 5 or 6. I'm not giving Cody Bellinger, who's on the wrong side of 30, a 5 or 6 year contract. It's just not happening if I'm the Mets. As much as I would love to have him here and think he would fit great, that's just not for me. I just don't think that's the right move. So I do think that their free agencies are linked, though. I think that once Tucker signs, Bellinger will soon sign after him as well. Good call by you, Bobby. Lane, can the Mets sign Bellinger and Imai? I mean, they can, absolutely. They could spend as much as they want as long as they're willing to pay the luxury tax penalties for going over the Cohen tax. Whether they will do that or not, I don't know. We know last week the tweet from Steve Cohen and the report from Mike Puma of the Post that they are expected to be in 310 to 320 range, and then Cohen calling some people idiots who we called idiots. We still don't truly know, but essentially saying, well, you're not factoring in arbitration and potential pickups at the deadline and yada yada. So can they do it? Absolutely. They're capable of it. Are they willing to? I don't know. I really truly don't know know the answer to that, that would be great. I mean, that'd be a nice way to kind of put a bow on this offseason. Maybe go out, trade for a guy, a starter, another outfielder, or a reliever. And I'd be feeling a lot better about the 2026 Mets if they were able to get all that done. But likelihood of them signing Bellinger and Tatsuya Imai, I think, are probably less than 10%. I'd actually say probably less than 5%. One of them, absolutely, it's possible, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Lane Kerner, sorry, do you fire Mendoza? No, not right now, obviously. I mean, we know he's not getting fired at this moment, and I wouldn't if I was David Stearns. I think last year was crazy. I think that there were a ton of injuries, and I'm sorry, but I had to blame a lot of it on David Stearns for not acting quicker to bring the prospects up, to add to the rotation, to acquire guys from around the league to insert into the bullpen instead of constantly signing and then DFAing the guys from Brandon Waddell to Rico Garcia to Chris Davinsky and on and on and on and on. So look, David Stearns could have fired Carlos Mendoza, who was a part of authoring one of the most epic collapses in baseball history this past season. But at the end of the day, he would have to look in the mirror and realize that he didn't give Mendy everything he needed to work with. I mean, we were talking about Tyrone Taylor as your starting center fielder who could barely hit above the Mendoza line for the entire season up until those final 2 months of the year. The injury to Jesse Winker, who virtually missed the entire season. Mark Vientos having a sophomore slump, and who knows what he is. There were just so many things that were wrong, and not to mention, of course, the starting rotation that was constantly getting injured. Not forget about him, but Frankie Montas, my gosh, just one of the many, many warts that were on this team. So no, I would not fire Carlos Mendoza. I give him at least until May before I start those murmurs, though. If things are not good by the end of May, there's no doubt that his ass will be on the hot seat, without a doubt about it. Stoney says, I see Bellinger going back to the Yankees. Well, we just heard in that report from Jack Curry, the Yankees will have Bellinger back, quote, at their price. The Yankees are penny pinching. They are not spending a buck. I mean, and I'm not trying to make fun of them. It's just this, they're not going to go out of their price range this year. They have an idea of what they want to do. I really, truly believe a lot of this is connected to the lockout next year. And I think that they're not going to spend over the bridges. They are going to just keep it status quo and hope that it works. I mean, I think they have a better roster than the Mets have at this moment right now. Clearly, they have a huge advantage in their rotation, although who knows what Garrett Cole will be coming off Tommy John. Who knows? Carlos Rodon had to get surgery and will miss the beginning of the year. But I think that the Yankees have drawn a line in the sand. They have spent a lot of money. They will bring back the guys that they would like to bring back if possible in the case of Bellinger, but they're not going to play Scott Boris's game and give in to his demands. So let's see. BenJR3705, what's up, bro? Why did these signings about David Stearns' long-term vision for the Mets? What does this say? What do these signings say about David Stearns' long-term vision for the Mets? As far as which signings, like the little one they did today for that pitcher Birch that they got on a 2-year minor league deal, or what are you talking about specifically? Let me know and I'll come back to you. 3705. Servant of Lord Jesus, how do you feel about the Jeff McNeil trade? I said it before, I love it. I think it's a great trade. Look, I know a lot of people are going to say they didn't get anything back for him. It's a 17-year-old in Dominican Summer League. Well, they saved $10 million. And at the end of the day, we do not have to worry about this Jeff McNeil, Francisco Lindor drama anymore. People are pointing the finger at Lindor, saying he's the common denominator in all these issues. Okay, maybe he was. Well, he also plays 160 games every year and hits 30 home runs and steals 30 bases and plays Gold Glove defense for the most part at shortstop. So you couldn't have both. And if you had to pick one, I'm picking Francisco Lindor. So I love the trade. Jeff out of town, start anew, and save $10 million. We'll see what Yordan Rodriguez, the 17-year-old from Cuba, is going to look like in 2030, okay? But I personally like the trade a lot, just to clear another spot on this roster and save $10 million here this offseason. Give me a second, guys. I'm parched for talking for an hour. I'm sure you guys are probably tired of hearing me anyway, but you're all still in here, so I appreciate it. But while I get this sip of water, go ahead and leave this video a like. Really appreciate y'all being here. Thank you so much. We're at 26 likes. I'd love to get this up to 40 if we can already. But thank you. And of course, subscribe if you're not. Daily Mets content, keep you up to date on all the things the Mets are doing this winter and this offseason. If you see my eyes darting around, it's because I'm looking at the TV screen that my computer is plugged into. That's the screen that you guys are looking at right here to my left. So that's why I'm doing that. But yeah, like I said, in a temporary studio for this week while visiting family. So just trying to get used to the new digs right here for now. But all right. So guys, I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comment section. What should the Mets do next this offseason? What would help fix this offseason? Because I think most Mets fans are in agreement. They're not happy with this offseason. Some people were more open to moving on from the Pete Alonso's and Nimmo's and Diaz's and etc. I don't think anyone was really okay with moving on from Diaz, right? But a lot of people are open-minded to the idea, but still not pleased with how the offseason has gone, when really all you've done so far is add Devin Williams, Luke Weaver, and Jorge Polanco to play a position that he's never played before in his career. So let me know in the comment section, what do you want to see the Mets do next? Me, personally, I would love the idea of signing Okamoto, putting him at first base, bringing in a guy like Tatsuya Imai if you could too. I mean, that would be awesome to bring both of them in, and then sharing up the defense by trading for somebody in the outfield. Luis Robert is the name that we've heard over and over again, so maybe that's the easiest path to getting that done. But even so, I still think they would need another bat in the form of a guy like Bellinger. So a lot of things that would have to come together for it all to work. But there are definitely a lot of things that David Stern still needs to do, in my opinion, to make this a playoff contending team for 2026. So let's go back to the chat over here. Jimmy James C, with this current lineup, I would not blame Mendoza at all. Yeah, and I mean, look, that was the same thing as the bullpen and the starting rotation last year when things really fell apart. All the injuries, everything else, the underperformance, guys failing to get through 5 innings or even work into the 5th inning on a nightly basis, having to go to a guy like Brandon Waddell or Rico Garcia. A lot of those times we'd get mad at Mendy and say, oh, he's punting this game. But who else was he going to go to? I mean, was he going to burn out his whole bullpen by going to a guy like Brooks Raley in the 5th inning? I mean, he was given a no-win situation with the way things were transpiring there down the stretch. So yeah, I would not blame that on Mendy. And if this is the lineup they're going to have going into next year, how could you blame them if they don't score a whole lot? Let's see. Stoney says, Tony, do you see the Mets maybe signing Starling Marte? Juan Soto wants him back. Man, that is one of the most frustrating things. But we know that Juan Soto was very close with Starling Marte. We heard the comments he made about Marte being the true leader on this team toward the end of last season. We have seen them posted up on Instagram pictures all off season long. Look, I'm sorry. That's just ridiculous though. Like, I like Starling Marte. I appreciated his time here. He is a 36-year-old, soon to be 37-year-old DH that is always going to need time on the injured list. That is ridiculous if the Mets go out and re-sign Starling Marte. I like Starling Marte. Like I said, he kind of gives me like Jason Hayward kind of vibes, where he's like that veteran clubhouse leader, keeps things loose, doesn't, bitch and moan for not getting to play every day anymore. It took him a little time to get used to that role last season, where he was really just a part-time player for the first time in his career. But I'm sorry, the Mets have far too many needs to be wasting money or a roster spot on Starling Marte just because Juan Soto likes him and they're buddies. I mean, if it happens, I guess I'll be okay with it. But no, I won't be okay with it. No, I'm not okay with it. So I really hope that doesn't happen. I don't see anyone else knocking down Starling Marte's door to get him on their team this year. So if the Mets are going to do it purely because him and Juan Soto are buddy, that ain't going to fly with me. I would be very disappointed with David Stearns in doing that. And I do not believe he will do that. So I really would not expect him to be on this roster next year. Let's see. Do you trade Brookie Raley? I never heard him called that. Brooks Raley. Yeah. Lane. No. Why would they trade Brooks Raley? He was amazing for them last year. No doubt. And I mean, look, he's going to be dependent on to be their big lefty reliever. You get AJ Minter back. He's not expected to start the year. He may. It's going to be close. Maybe after a week or two, and then he'll join the roster. But who knows what you're going to get out of AJ Minter at his age, coming off a torn lat. So no, I do not want to trade Brooks Raley by any means at all. Let's see. Sorry guys, the chat moved up on me. Let me go back up here a little bit. My guys, Mets says Stearns will sign Paul Goldschmidt for first, Austin Hayes for left, and Lucas Giolito for the rotation. Okay, if that's the case, I don't know if I can watch Mets baseball next year. The Mets round out their offseason by signing Paul Goldschmidt to play first. They sign Austin Hayes for left field and Lucas Giolito to join this rotation. I don't know if I can watch the 2026 Mets. That sounds horrific. Oh my goodness. I really hope not, dude. Stoney, you've heard that saying that I had before? Dang it. All right, fine. Jimmy James, I'd feel much better if the Mets got Bellinger. I feel the same way, dude. I mean, again, it's going to depend on what Kyle Tucker gets, though. I don't think that Bellinger is signing until they see what the market is set from Tucker's deal. So I think it might be a little while before that. I missed some of these guys. I'm really sorry. I never try to skip anybody's comments here. Love up with Benji 3705. What did these signings say about Stearns? I still didn't hear from you, 3705. Let me know. Here we go. Can the Mets trade Lindor to San Diego? Asked Lane Kerner. I mean, they could, but they're not going to. One, the Padres are not going to take on his contract. They are in financial turmoil with the sale, the death of their owner, and now the transfer and sale of it because of the families involved in that. They're looking to shed payroll. That was kind of a joke that a lot of Padre fans were doing this offseason because they kept seeing Mets fans mocking Fernando Tatis Jr. to Queens. And so they were kind of just, being trolls about it. But no, Lindor is not getting traded this offseason, and he is not getting traded to the Padres. Definitely not, I don't believe. Jimmy James with his current lineup wouldn't blame Mendy. Sorry, I got to that one already. Love up. It's fine to build around the young guys, but Mets have the money to build around that, so I don't get why he doesn't spend. The thing they spent money on bad contracts. Yeah, look, but we're just now seeing the first kind of like wave of the young guys that, are new and going to be cheap and controllable for years. And it kind of makes sense to give them these opportunities as much as you can right now and then see what's out there. And let's be honest, guys, we know this hasn't been a super impressive free agent market this year. I mean, starting pitching wise, Dylan Cease, $210 million. I don't think any of us wanted to give that to Dylan Cease, despite starting pitching being the biggest need that we have. Now, who knows what's going to happen because of the CBA negotiations next year, but Tyreek Skubal is going to be a free agent. Freddie Peralta is going to be a free agent, barring an extension with either the Brewers or another team. So I think it's a little more attractive next year. It's not a great hitters market next year, but even on the hitter side, I mean, did you want to sign Alex Bregman at 30 years old plus? Did you want to do the same with Pete and with, Bo Bichette is obviously one of the younger and more attractive position players out there, but was really never a fit position wise being a shortstop, even though we know he's not a very good defensive shortstop and he's willing to move off position. That might have been one had you not already went for Simeon. So I do think the moves and the spending will come, but I think you needed, like I said before, to clear out the weeds before you could start to see new seeds sprouting up. So I think it's going to come, just maybe not on the timeline we're all hoping that it would. All right, I keep losing my spot here in the chat, but Kev Chana, what's up, man? How's it going? Good to see you. The Bros 612 Astros cheat. Do they? Yeah, they do. I would love Kyle Tucker, though. I agree with you, bro. Let's see. Armand, trade David Peterson to open a rotation spot for Imai. I suggest Peterson and the Astros for Brian Abreu. Astros got another starter for the rotation, and the Mets fill out the pen. Yeah, unfortunately, as much as I love Brian Abreu, I was looking at him the other day when I was trying to think if we could do a mock trade with the Astros. I read a lot of reports that they are not going to pitch Josh Hader and Brian Abreu all too often in the beginning of the season because we know Hader went down with a season-ending injury last year, and that really derailed them in that final month of the season. And Abreu is a very fragile guy himself, and so they're going to be depending on those two guys to carry them throughout the whole season, and they are not going to overwork them. And so basically what I'm saying is it doesn't sound like they're in the interest of moving Brian Abreu, especially in the case that Josh Hader gets hurt again. Abreu would essentially, assume that closer role for him like he did in the final month of the season here in 2025. So I don't think that Abreu is actually available in terms of the Astros and their thinking, just based on what I've read from them and their beat writers here this offseason so far. But love the idea of Abreu. Love the idea of moving Peterson if it, helps improve the team in another area, giving the Mets a chance to sign a guy like Tatsuya Imai or acquire another better starting pitcher, Freddie Peralta, cough, cough. But I think that Abreu is probably one that just, may not actually work out for us here. Let's see. Kevchada, tearing the core away is an excuse to cover for Stearns' failed offseason last year. Ooh, could be. I mean, look, he didn't get a great roster put together last year, as we saw play out. Frankie Montas, I still will always have nightmares about that. I can't believe we're paying that guy this year, but here we are, right? But yeah, I mean, look, it was a perfect storm, and there were a lot of moves that led up to this. It was the extension of McNeil a few years ago after winning the batting title. It was the 8-year, I believe it was, deal for Brandon Nimmo, getting $25 million per season. So, you know, and then Pete Alonso not signing that 7-year, $150 million extension in 2023. You know, had some of those things happened or not happened, we might be in a very different place. And the same for the Edwin Diaz extension in 2022. You know, if he doesn't tear his ACL in the World Baseball Classic, like how differently does his Mets tenure go here on that second contract that we handed to him? And then, of course, all the opt-outs in it that gave him the opportunity to jump to the Dodgers here this winter. So lots of little things happened, and it almost seems like it just created a perfect storm here for this offseason, and that's why we are where we are right now. Coachera, Mets. I'm just going to Carrera. I don't know why I said Coachera. Carrera, Mets, please do take Luis Robert Jr. off Chicago White Sox hands. Please do. Okay, fine, but you guys got to pay his whole contract. No, I'm just kidding, but we're not giving you anything good if we got to take on that $20 million. Board Dude, what's up? He said, I'd love Imai and Luis Robert. Me too. I feel the same way. Carrera Stearns is really taking the MLB The Show GM mode to the furthest extremes this offseason. Just Soto, Lindor looking at each other in the dugout on opposite sides. Enjoy. Man, if you could just do forced trades, that would be great. I'd really appreciate that. That would make this a whole lot easier, wouldn't it? Right? I'd go right for Fernando Tatis Jr. I'd go for Aaron Judge. I would go for Scooble. That would be great if forced trades was a thing in real life, right? The Pros Peterson could be decent. Yeah, could be. We'll see. He's on the final year of his deal, though, so it might be time to part ways, you know, and see what you could get for him at this point with the rotation that's got so many question marks. Lane Kerner, do you trade Mark Vientos? I mean, like I said, in the right deal, yes. If you're talking about something like Jarren Duran coming over, obviously the Mets would have to add a guy like Sprout or some other type of intriguing prospect or two. Yeah, I might be into it, but I could absolutely see Vientos also bouncing back here this year and getting closer to his 2024 form. But, you know, I'm not in the interest of ifs, ands, or buts. I would like sure things. I want to see the Mets win a World Series sooner than later, so I'm just like, you know, done wishing and hoping on guys at this point. You know, I'm 31 years old. I've never seen a World Series victory for our Mets, and then I know I speak for a lot of us when I say that, but you know, I'm ready to see them hoist the trophy, put up another banner at Citi Field. So, you know, we can just continue to hope guys are going to perform and do right and do well and live up to their potential. But at the end of the day, the longer and longer this goes, the older and older and more gray hairs that I continue to get, the harder and harder it is to believe. But guys, really appreciate y'all tuning in. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Again, leave this video a like if you've not already. I really appreciate you all tuning in here. Seriously, guys, you've been awesome all year long, really, since I started this up again back in March of this past year. And it's cool that we're coming up now here on the end of 2025 and have grown exponentially. It's a huge thanks to you guys for that and for always tuning in, for leaving comments and leaving likes on my videos. As you can see, this stream is starting to go off the beaten track a little bit here, but that is why we're going to wrap it up, though. It has been a great time chatting with you guys all year and specifically right here tonight. So leave this video a like, subscribe if you're not already for daily Mets content, and keep it tuned here to the channel so you can stay up to date on everything Mets offseason related. But that is going to do it for right now, guys. Best to you, your families. Happy holidays. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you